Hello, Thomas. Here is the beginning of your watercolor tutorial. I am, as you requested, going to go over materials first. So the things that you need for watercolor painting are obviously paint, paper, and brushes. I'm going to suggest that you get a Prang 16 color set to start with, because I think that will give you enough to play around with, and it's a good quality paint and it's inexpensive. It comes in a plastic box. Somewhat similar to this, except it opens on two sides. And what you have when you get a paint box like this, hold on a second, is you have the paints here, and then over here you have a tray which allows you to mix the colors. And with the Prang tray, the tray is actually white plastic, so it's easier to see the colors you're mixing. Very important, of course, is paper. Now, paper comes in many different sizes and many different qualities. What I'm going to suggest to you, because of the project I think you want to do, is something that's called a watercolor block. And I think about this size would be good for you, which is about 4 by 6. And what this is it's a little pad of watercolor paper where the edges are adhesive together. And the reason that's a good thing is that it keeps the paper stretched, so that when you put water on it, it stays flat for you to work on, and it doesn't get all buckled up, which can be really kind of unpleasant. And then what happens when you're finished and your painting is completely dry is there's one section of the pad where there is no adhesive, and you take like a butter knife or something and you go in and move the knife around the edges and break the adhesive, and then you can take your paintings off. The next thing that you need in order to paint is brushes. So it's good to have a selection of brushes. Here's a sort of a rough picture of the selection of brushes that I have that I normally use. They tend to be fairly small. What I'm going to suggest is that you get one reasonably large brush. This is a number 12. It has a rounded edge and it's a hair, or it could be acrylic. It doesn't really make any difference. This particular one is Cotman, which is the student grade of Winsor Newton. It's another good brand. Then the next size I would recommend, that's a 12. You probably want a 6, so you can see the difference between these two. This is the 12, this is the 6, and then probably a 3 is good. And I would get one more for tiny details, and that can be either a 1 or a 0. This is a 0. So if you had these 4 brushes, I think you could pretty much do anything that you want. Free supplies such as a container to put water in. I always use my old yogurt containers. It's nice to have some paper towels so that you can blot, or you can blot up extra water. And it's also nice to have a sponge. I like to cut small sponges because, particularly if I'm working small like I'm suggesting for you, it's nice to have a sponge that fits the size of the work we're doing. And it also can be nice to have a spray bottle so that you can experiment with different effects. That concludes our first segment of a watercolor tutorial focused on materials. The second segment will be focused on watercolor techniques. Hope you're going to have fun with this.